Last year, Capcom released Resident Evil HD, and thanks to its overwhelming success, the same treatment has been given to its prequel, Resident Evil Zero. Unfortunately, Resident Evil Zero isn't in the same league as its predecessor, but it still offers an engaging survival horror adventure through suitably creepy environments. The game begins one day before the infamous Spencer Mansion incident. STAR's Bravo team is called into the Arklay Mountains to investigate a series of bizarre murders when their helicopter crash lands in the surrounding forest. The team stumbles upon a slew of corpses and believes it's the work of escaped convict Billy Cohen. Protagonist Rebecca Chambers locates him on a zombie-infested train, and the two must work together to escape the living nightmare.
Is someone there?
The government has announced that it has set out to protect our common. But as of 2 years ago,
Resident Evil Zero took risks with series mechanics when it was originally released in 2002, but time hasn't done these choices any favors. The two protagonists, Rebecca and Billy, can be controlled concurrently or switched between freely. This integrates itself into puzzles, combat, and most egregiously, item management. Item boxes have been removed, allowing players to freely drop or combine items on the fly. In theory, this should eliminate the need to backtrack, but in practice, it makes it much worse. The tedium of having to swap items back and forth between each character slows the pace to a crawl throughout the 7-hour adventure. A considerable amount of time spent in Resident Evil Zero revolves around trading items and knowing where to place them for later use. Perplexingly, rooms can only hold a finite amount, forcing you to divide your stash into multiple locations. The simple task of trading weapons or clearing space to combine herbs is cumbersome for the game's duration. Combat is similar to traditional Resident Evils, but having two characters attack simultaneously creates thrilling moments. When flanked by zombies or other genetic freaks, each character dispensing round after round into encroaching enemies is dramatic. The leech monsters are some of the most deadly and visually striking enemies in the series, and a frightening sight to behold, especially when low on resources. Other trademark Resident Evil baddies also make their presence felt at inopportune times to help create a constant sense of dread and mystery. Boss fights are slightly less intimidating as they lack the visual creativity defined by other games in the series. Unimaginative creatures like a giant centipede or a giant bat are boring to fight. Also, having to manage each character or depend on the inept AI to evade attacks usually proves disastrous. Switching characters is seamless and done with the push of a button, but since Billy can sustain considerably more damage than Rebecca, she's often relegated to a glorified pack mule. There are times when the pair is separated that increase the tension, but these moments also suffer from item management problems. Only Rebecca can combine herbs, which forces Billy to bypass valuable resources only to come back with her in tow. Graphically, Resident Evil Zero looks stunning considering it originally released 14 years ago. Zombie heads explode in a shower of blood when critically hit and appear as if they're dripping flesh when shambling toward you in search of their next meal. You can play in either the newly added 16:9 widescreen or original 4:3 format. The widescreen can be distracting at first as the camera has a subtle pan to keep the character in frame, but it's easy to get used to. New movement options are also added, which will come as a welcomed addition to tank control haters. However, the new controls take away the weight associated with each character and make them feel disconnected from the game world. It's as if they're gliding through the stage on roller skates instead of cautiously investigating each dimly lit corridor. The most noteworthy addition to the HD version is Wesker mode, which unlocks after completing the main game. Series antagonist Albert Wesker takes Billy Cohen's place, but comes equipped with the power of Ouroboros from later in the series. Wesker can dash through the environment at high speeds and unleash a lightning blast from his eyes that destroys enemies in one hit. It's a fun diversion not to be taken seriously, especially when Billy's dialogue comes from Wesker. The Eye Blast is also a bizarre ability choice, making us wish for a more traditional moveset associated with the legendary villain. Resident Evil 0 suffers from cumbersome inventory management and tedious backtracking that kill the flow and tension considerably. Additionally, dull boss fights and a lackluster main villain lower the stakes from a narrative standpoint. There are exciting and tense moments to be had throughout the journey, but just not on the same level as other Resident Evil games. This one's only for dedicated followers of the series.